And Mick Jagger's also playing harmonica on this song too, right?
Mick Jagger's playing harmonica. And how about the fact I just texted him and he said, yeah, send me the track.
That's insane.
I about fell over. I was like, what? This is my life. I can't believe it.
Hey friends, it's your girl Emily Curl, and today I am joined by 9-time Grammy Award winner, multi-platinum artist, and all-around badass. We have Sheryl Crow here with us. Sheryl, it's so nice to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Emily?
I'm good. This is so exciting for us to get to chat with you, and again, with this amazing background. We love the guitars, the music setup. This is gonna be fun.
Thank you. This is my studio, and man, during the pandemic, we got so lucky having a studio at the bottom of the driveway and being able to do this right here.
Yeah, well, this is special. I mean, and we get to peek into your life right now, but we're also gonna get another peek into your life because the full-length documentary film, Sheryl, is coming out soon. It's all about your life. I mean, this is such a huge moment. What was this like for you? How did you get your head around doing something like this?
When my manager came to me and said, look, you have a lot of interest in doing a documentary on you, I was like, absolutely not. Documentaries, those usually happen after you've died in a fiery plane crash or something, and I just was not into it. And then the more we talked about it, and the more I thought about how many documentaries I've watched, particularly during quarantine, they've meant so much to me. They've been such an inspiration, and I've seen quite a few documentaries of people who are still living. I just thought, I'm 30 years in to this career, and there's so many stories there that I thought, with a great director, it would definitely be worthwhile. So we picked Amy Scott and didn't look back, just dug right in.
I want to go back to Amy for a second. Before that, watching so many documentaries, was there one in particular that really struck you or really inspired you?
Oh my gosh, the one on Nina Simone was just incredible. The one on Wings, more recently, the Beatles documentary, which I binge watched, and then I rewatched the last one. It was such a huge inspiration, and it really was what inspired the song Forever, which is on the soundtrack.
Yeah, and working with Amy Scott, we love to see a female director. What was that experience like for you?
It was great. I mean, we had several females that we were choosing between, and I watched the documentary that she did on Hal Ashby, and it just absolutely blew me away. I loved her sensibilities, and I loved her taste, and I felt like, this person seems like she would really tell the story in a raw and honest way, and she did. She created a really sort of sacred space for me to share there's a lot of uplifting stories, but there are a lot of really emotional stories as well. You can't be around for 30 years and be a woman in this business and not have a lot of stories to tell. So she was great.
As a host myself, I'm always curious, for these interviews that we get to see, we get snippets of it in the trailer. Did Amy sit down and do these interviews with you, or what did that creative process look like?
We sat in here, we spent hours on end, and it's really, I'll be honest, it was really exhausting to sit and remember. It's not even just a 30-year career. I was a school teacher before I ever made it. I went on the road with Michael Jackson, and they're just remembering everything. And a lot of things I haven't thought about in years coming up. I was so, by 8 o'clock at night, I was exhausted. My kids are like, Mom, are you sick? Why are you so tired? I'm like, I'm just exhausted from talking about myself. But, in the end, it was kind of cathartic. It was great. You don't really sit down and think about your life that often. So it was kind of a neat process.
Yeah, we get that little peek. You touch on so many themes where you say it was a lot of real high highs and real low lows. You kind of touched on this. Was there some of those moments that were really difficult to go back and explore and revisit those memories in that time in your life?
Yeah, our business is kind of a strange season to weather. And in other words, you're as an artist, particularly as a singer-songwriter, you're supposed to be really sensitive and you're supposed to be able to access those emotions. But then you get thrust into sort of the fame world, and you have to figure out a way not to be so sensitive. I think about how it is now with social media and just how mean people can be. And I don't know that I could actually even weather that if I were to try and come out now as a young artist. You're trying to be really awake and be able to write about things that are happening with you, but at the same time you're trying to keep your guard up. There were a lot of experiences that I know young women or women, period, have experienced and are experiencing in businesses that are predominantly run by men. It does create a really challenging dynamic.
Absolutely. I mean, the notion about the double standard of women in media and in music is being talked about more and more, but there's still a lot of progress to be made. And you've obviously dealt with that in your career at, some would say, when that was at its peak.
Yeah, I definitely, and I think I've talked about it on a couple of occasions. I've experienced sexual harassment, and now we have the Me Too movement. But when I was coming up, when it was really happening in a severe way for me, it was, longer than 25 years ago. There was no Me Too movement. There was no place to go to say, look, this is my story and I need help. I definitely was not, I wasn't shielded or guarded in any way. It was just like, well, a lot of people would be happy to be in the position you're in. But yeah, and I do get more into it. But yeah, a lot of that stuff is difficult to talk about, It just brings up a lot of old stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting even for me, because you sit on the sidelines and you see these things happening with other women's journeys like Britney Spears or Kesha, who have gone through similar things, and it's a lifelong struggle for women. Is it tough for you to see these other artists go through something similar, knowing, and you've been there yourself in their shoes?
Yeah, it is. I think part of it, particularly in Kesha's case, it's, you can fight for yourself, but while you're fighting for yourself, you're also losing a lot of time. It's such an unfair scenario, and it does give you an emotional black eye that you wear for a very long time.
Yeah, and what would you say to this next generation of women with dealing with other people's opinions of them, how to stay grounded and how to stay true to themselves? What would you say to them?
I would say the most unpopular thing, and that no one would listen to me about, and that's to not live your life on social media. I think a number of things have happened that I've seen throughout my career because I was around before social media. It's opened up this Pandora's box for people to be really mean and envious. Hopefully though, the young women that are out there, hopefully they know themselves well enough to know that their truth is their truth and that what other people think about them is not their truth. It is still difficult though to read ugly things about yourself. I don't read my press or anything like that. I live with my head in the sand basically, and that's really easy to do when you're raising two little boys. But for young people now, I think just finding a way to keep yourself centered and grounded and not tapped into people's opinions.
I mean, speaking of that, Selena Gomez just said she hasn't been on social media in 4.5 years, and how much more present it's made her. Have your relationships deepened, not reading all that stuff, not being on social media?
Yeah, I was listening to this great book called The New Earth, which has been out for quite some time by Eckhart Tolle. And one of the things that he said, which really resonated with me, is that the clearest way of showing someone love is to be present. I'm older than a lot of the artists that are out there, and you do start reflecting as you get older, but we are here for a finite amount of time, and you don't want to look back and think, I wasted so much time tapping into something that was in my hand instead of something that was in my life. And I think it's even more clear when you have kids, because, I have a kid that I feel like I adopted yesterday, and he's going to be graduating from high school in 4 years. And you just go, where did the time go? And did I make the most of it? And you do start feeling like all the fame stuff and the trying to advertise my great life and my beautiful body and all that stuff, it becomes so unimportant when you're talking about the relationships that you have.
And as a mom too, have your kids got a chance to watch the documentary? I'm curious, did they know everything that their mom has gone through over the course of her life and her career?
That's really tricky. I mean, I remember being in 3rd grade and realizing that my parents had a whole life before I was born, because as far as I was concerned, their life began when I was born. So they know who I am from the moment they came into my life. They go on the road, they know that world, they know that I go out and play music. They have not even equated that with work until I was making my last record, and they were here for the work part of it, and they're like, oh. We have a swear jar in the kitchen, so I'm just like, oh my gosh, when they hear me drop the F-bomb throughout the documentary, I'm gonna owe some serious 20
Yeah,
buckers.
you're putting 20s in there, yeah.
I mean, some of the content is, maybe a little more mature than what they would be ready for, particularly stuff about sexual harassment. But yeah, they will see it. But for them right now, they just like mom.
Is there anything that maybe is a little nerve-wracking that people are going to watch and see in the documentary? Anything that makes you particularly nervous?
Yeah, I mean, I was telling a good friend of mine the other day, in my community here, I'm Wyatt and Levi's mom. You know, I'm involved in their school activities. And once people see that, I think they'll see me differently. And you know, hopefully people won't judge. I'm not a perfect person. You know, I'm always seeking to be compassionate and empathetic, and I wish I was perfect, but I'm not. And there's a world of learning throughout the documentary, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So hopefully people won't stick that one memory that they have from the documentary and change the way they see me, you know. But I think there will be people that watch it that feel like they see themselves in it, and it will be empowering for them. And that's really the mission.
Yeah. I mean, and take me back to the moment when you first saw it. You watch it through, you get to the end, the credits roll. What's going on in your head?
I'm feeling like, oh my God, you are so old. And then after I got over the shock of that, yeah, I mean, I think it's a beautiful documentary. I mean, there are 10 other documentaries that could have been made. In 90 minutes, you can't tell the full story of 50 years of living. And I think what Amy and her team did is beautiful. And they told the story that they felt was the most important story to tell. Yeah. And I watched it, and I made a couple of suggestions, and they attempted them, but they didn't necessarily fit with the story, and then I let go of it.
What's also so amazing to me too is you're the voice of a generation, but that continues on, and you've inspired so many other singer-songwriters, and so many other artists have talked about how big of an influence you have. Artists like Phoebe Bridgers, her, Lorde, Maren Morris. How does that feel for you?
I feel honored. I mean, there are women that I say the same thing about in my life. You know, were it not for Stevie Nicks, were it not for Emmylou Harris, were it not even for Joni Mitchell in some ways, I don't know that I'd be doing what I'm doing. The reality of it is that those women are inspiring me to keep going. First time I listened to Phoebe Bridgers' last record, I cried. And isn't that what it's about, you know, to actually for a moment be lost in the experience that someone's writing about, and it feels like your own. And her, I'm uplifted and I feel hopeful about the future of music with her and with all these young women, with Maren Morris and with Brandy. And I feel like, you know, they're truth tellers and they're authentic and they're strong, and they have it all over me. They feel like to me that they are clear about who they are in a way that I wasn't when I first started. That feels like the old, we've come a long way, baby moment, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting to hear you say that, because I feel like you've always had such a strong sense of self. But when do you feel like you really came into your own or really understood what that meant for you?
There are different waves in my career. You know, there was that part that happened way before I got a record deal where I was trying to figure out what it was I wanted to be, and then there was the part after I got the record deal where it felt like it started to explode, and then you're grappling with how to be an artist, and you're getting played at radio, and you're trying not to think about how do I stay on the radio while you're trying to be an artist, and then suddenly fame hits, and you're not just an artist, you're a celebrity, and then you get diagnosed with breast cancer. Then everything it was like the doors closed, and it was time to sort of meet myself. And I think after that, I was liberated from all of it. You know, it was a moment of returning to the person I started out as.
I mean, and you have such an iconic music journey. And speaking of that, there's an album coming out alongside of the documentary, Sheryl, music from the feature documentary. Some of your biggest hits, but also 3 new tracks, including a Rolling Stones cover, Live With Me, that we are world premiering on iHeartRadio. It's so badass. It's awesome. Tell us a little bit about this one.
It's crazy when I think about it. I was promoting the first record, and we were in Europe, and we were as big outside of the United States as we were in the States. So we were all over the place in Europe. And I get a phone call at 4:30 in the morning in Amsterdam from Mick Jagger asking me if I wanted to come sing with the Rolling Stones in Miami. I can't do an English accent. And I was like, oh, yes, Mr. Jagger. And before I knew it, I was on a private plane. I'd never been on a private plane. And I get over there, and it's Thanksgiving Day. We rehearse, And the next day is the day of the show. I throw up all day long, and then right before I go out, I'm standing on the side of the stage waiting for them to call my name. Bobby Keys handed me a bottle of tequila, and he's like, here, take a little shot of courage, and I got booted out there, and we did Live With Me. That was like a real meeting myself out there, because I love the Rolling Stones. I grew up listening to the Rolling Stones, and then after that, I had a relationship with the Rolling Stones. So we just wanted to pay some homage to the Stones and how much they've been a vital lifeline for me in my career.
Yeah, I mean, and Mick Jagger's also playing harmonica on this song too, right?
Mick Jagger's playing harmonica! For crying out loud! It's crazy!
That's not a sentence that everyone can say. That's amazing.
And how about the fact I just texted him and he said, yeah, send me the track.
That's insane.
I about fell over. I was like, what? This is my life. I can't believe it.
Now, again, you have so many iconic songs, 35 tracks on this. Is there a song that you look back on and you're like, I am so sick of singing this song? Or is there one where you're like, okay, wow, this one still feels so fresh and so fun to play?
Well, I mean, let's just address the elephant in the room. All I want to do was kind of a throwaway track, and then it exploded. But you know what? I came to terms with it after like the third tour of playing it every night. I realized, wow, this one song has taken me to Tokyo and to Rio and to St. Petersburg and Moscow and Indonesia, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore. I mean, places I would never have dreamt of seeing. And people who don't even speak English singing along to that extremely wordy song. So I play it with total gratitude. But yeah, I do get a little sick of it. It's a sickening gratitude.
Yeah. And Sheryl, last question for you before I let you go is I feel like so often people, and especially women, feel like they're at their prime when they're younger. But for me, sitting here, being with you, listening to your career, this documentary film is coming out, I feel like you're at your prime now. Do you feel that way?
Oh my gosh, I love you. You're my new best friend. Can we be pen pals? I do. I mean, it's a weird thing. It's really hard to get old in the music business. It's hard to get old in the business at all. I mean, it's hard for women, and that's a bummer. You know, you do sort of wind up being a little bit irrelevant when it comes to being like super popular. But that being said, I always feel like my best work is in front of me, and I feel like, gosh, there's so much to write about, and I'm more inspired now to write. I feel like I'm writing my best stuff now, and I'm enjoying life so much more than when I was young and, you know, famous, and I don't know. I feel like there's everything to live for and to keep being creative and just, you know, keep walking the walk.
Oh my gosh, Sheryl, that's so good to hear. I mean, and this has been so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on everything, and we cannot wait to stream the documentary Sheryl. It's out May 6th on Showtime. Sheryl Crow, thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for checking out our interview with Sheryl Crow. Make sure you watch her documentary film, Sheryl. It's out now. You do not want to miss this.